Welcome to the Harshi Podcast. Before we get started today sharing our own experience with doulas, I wanted to take a moment to talk about a really beautiful organization within the birth world called Doula Trainings International, otherwise known as DTI. I met Tara and Gina, who are the founders of DTI, a few years ago, and I was immediately impressed by their professionalism along with their authenticity and love. The mix was tangible right away. Just like with any of us, the work that we're doing, we transform. And I've watched DTI grow and transform into something even more beautiful than it was a few years ago when I became aware of them. DTI is a community that is unified in their commitment to autonomy, radical inclusivity, which you guys know I love. Being inclusive is very important to me. Reproductive justice, collaborative entrepreneurship, intentional growth. I mean, you see where they're going with this, right? They really take pride in learning from one another and growing together as a community of doulas and birth workers to be intentional to help women and families have beautiful, respectful birth and postpartum experiences for everyone who's involved. They offer birth doula trainings in person online, postpartum doula trainings, again in person and online, as well as childbirth educator trainings. They also have learning labs, which is open to anyone, for advanced workshops for birth professionals and parents. Another awesome thing they're doing this year is a conference. It's going to be called Born Into This Conference, and it's being held in Austin, Texas, which is our hometown right now currently, July 12th and 13th. And this conference is just going to be shifting conversation, paradigms, what we expect when it comes to option support and respect, specifically when it comes to birth and postpartum for the birthing individual and their families and those who are involved in it. So those tickets are already on sale. You can check out the panel of speakers, the topics they'll be discussing, all at bornintothis.co, and their Instagram is at bornintothis.co as well. For more about their learning lab and their birth and postpartum trainings, you can go to their other website, wearedti.com.
Red dot.
I already pressed it, so now you're going to have to edit this out.
Oh, we could leave it in.
No, I hate when you do that. So no, and that's the whole point of a podcast, is that you can take out stuff.
Yeah, but people like to hear the reality of things.
I know, but I think our authentic footprint is very high already.
Authentic? Like the carbon footprint?
Yes. Did you like that?
I did like that.
That's pretty good. Okay, let's talk about how doulas have helped us.
All right.
Doulas. You know, obviously, I started Birth Without Fear how long ago? Almost 9 years ago. Holy crap.
Yeah.
Is that real? Getting there in May.
8 years. No, 8 years.
8 years ago?
No, because you're going to celebrate the 8th birthday in Australia.
Is that it?
Yep.
I know
because I wrote that out.
It's getting so long now that it's like, about 10 years ago. But yeah, and obviously doulas are a huge part of that community, and which is wonderful. And there's different kinds of doulas. Well, first of all, let's break down a little bit. A doula is, some people still are not sure what a doula is.
Yeah, what is a doula?
So a doula is not a care provider. They're birth support.
Yes.
Or postpartum support. Pregnancy support. There's support. There's support around pregnancy, birth, and postpartum. There's birth doulas that help you create your birth plans and help create space for whatever kind of birth you have. There's postpartum doulas who come in and support the family unit, whatever that looks like in those early postpartum weeks and months. So there's different kinds of doulas. Every doula is unique. So just like with anyone else you hire for your birth team, you need to interview and find the right doula for you. So I have not had doulas for all of our births or postpartum, but we have had a few experiences with doulas, and they've all actually been very positive.
They have, yeah.
Yeah, and we're going to share just a little bit about that today. So the first experience we had with any kind of doula was after the birth of our second baby. You were in grad school.
Yep, I was in the second trimester of chiropractic school
and
in Dallas.
We have been planning a home birth VBAC, which is vaginal birth after cesarean, also referred to as an HBAC, home birth after cesarean. And at 42 and a half weeks, I went into labor, and then our care was not managed well, and I ended up transferring to the hospital and having a cesarean birth with a care provider I didn't know. And that whole birth story is on the Birth Hours podcast. But for the purpose of today, I just want to share that the postpartum did not start out as planned at all. And we did share about our postpartum experiences on another
Yes, we did.
On another episode, right? So
I don't know that we touched on the doulas, though.
We didn't.
No.
So if you just want to hear about our postpartum experiences, you can go look up that episode. But so you were in grad school. It was a week of tests, right?
Oh, yeah, it was crazy. I had 5 exams in 7 days the week after number 2 was born.
Right. And then we had a 22-month-old.
Yeah.
So we had a toddler.
20-month-old, actually.
Was she 20 months?
20 months, yeah.
We had a toddler, a young toddler.
Yes.
And a brand new baby. And I had a major surgery. And it was the exact opposite of the birth I had wanted or planned. Birth experience, I should say.
Yeah.
And we were just stressed out. We were so stressed out. And at the time, just to keep setting this up, what it was like, we were Mormon, and we lived in a very transient ward, meaning there were a lot of people in and out, a lot of schools that lived in the ward boundaries, so there were a lot of students, and there were a lot of young families. So there was at any given time 20 women that were expecting in our ward.
Yeah.
And so there was always like the meal trains being set up, and there was always somebody who just had a baby or a couple somebodies. And in the church, one of the things I loved about the Mormon church and what drew me to it was the emphasis on support of family and having babies and having children, and so much service and love for one another. Like it's really a beautiful thing, and something that was common, at least in the area we lived, and within the church, was mothers and mother-in-laws visiting for a week or two after women had their babies, and just coming and helping them establish feeding routines and taking care of their homes and doing their dishes and being up with them at night. And we did not have that.
No, we did not have that.
We don't have that. Brandon's mom has passed away, and my mom is not in the picture. And my grandparents, I love them. We're super close, but they run their own company. And my siblings, it wasn't even on their radar, right?
Yeah. That's not going to happen with them.
No. So my grandmother, knew everything that was going on and how difficult it was, and knew that she couldn't come and be with us or help in a hands-on way. So she hired a postpartum doula to come help, to be her hands, I suppose, and to be the support that she couldn't be at the time. And I don't remember exactly how she did it, but she hired a doula, and I think she did a certain amount of hours is what it was. And I don't remember exactly how many hours it was, but we broke it up over, I think it was like 3 days a week for 2 weeks for a couple hours.
Yeah, I remember it being 2 weeks.
And it was just a few days a week, 2 or 3, and for a few hours, I believe. I mean, this was 12 years ago, so I'm pretty sure that's how it was. And she came in and she just held space for me to grieve the loss of the birth experience that I had wanted, to grieve how I was treated by my home birth midwife and the OB on call and the pediatrician in the hospital. And she helped me with trying to figure out breastfeeding because we were having latch issues. And what she mostly did was straighten up, folded my laundry, listened to me, and played with my toddler, because that's what I needed.
And she did dishes.
I said cleaned up.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Yeah. I just remember that standing out. I came home one day.
You were
and
so
she
happy.
was doing dishes, and I was like, wow, this is like the greatest thing.
Well, when you just had a baby, and depending how that, some women give birth and everything feels pretty good fairly quickly.
Right.
But whether you've had vaginal birth or cesarean birth, the opposite might be true, where just standing there and doing the dishes, you will be sore, you'll start bleeding more because, postpartum, you're bleeding. Even when you have a cesarean, a lot of women don't expect that, but you are. You still had a baby and a placenta and everything inside your body, and so your body has to bleed and expel, things. And so standing there and doing the dishes for 10 or 15 minutes really can be just too strenuous. So yeah, it's it's like the best gift in the world to have your dishes done during that time, or to have someone bring you a meal. So that was incredibly helpful. And like I said earlier, all doulas are different. Mm-hmm. And my postpartum doula did not mind if the whole few hours I just needed her to read books and play with my daughter. And no, doulas are not babysitters at all, but in the hours that I had her and the needs that I had, that was one of the things she didn't mind. She did not mind. She knew that that's what this new mama who was healing from a very traumatic birth experience and having a hard time bonding with her son and breastfeeding, that's what she needed, and so that's what she provided. And I've always been grateful for that. It made the biggest difference for us.
Absolutely. And that's what you should look for in a doula, is someone who's just willing to do whatever you need, no matter what it is. I mean, obviously there's certain limits, but
this is what I love, the difference in men and women. Like, men are just say, this is what I need, and you're either going to provide me that service or you're not, and I'll find someone who will. You're not as much of a people pleaser as women are, and sometimes we find ourselves not asking for help or accepting help because we're going to people pleaser mode, or people shouldn't have to do that for me. Whereas men, can you imagine men having babies? Or like, excuse me, I'm going to need meals for 6 months, and yeah, you'll have a place for me to pump at work, and this is what I need if I'm hiring a doula, and let me just lay it out for you. And I think women could actually use a little bit more of that. Like, we should take a little bit of a page from a man's book if they were the one birthing and breastfeeding and healing postpartum.
Well, you hear those people that complain about population control. I guarantee you, if men were having babies, there wouldn't be any population control issues. It'd be one and done.
One and done would be the norm.
Any man who wants to have more than two would just be a glutton for punishment.
It wouldn't be understandable to you?
Yeah, I don't get it with seahorses. The males have the babies, and the minute they have all the babies, they're getting pregnant again. It's like there's definitely no rational thought going on there.
We've gotten so off track. Oh my gosh. I think seahorses would need like life doulas.
Yeah.
They would just need a seahorse doula to just be with them at all times.
So, Mr. Seahorse, do you really feel like you need to be pregnant again?
Can I hold space for you while you process the fact that you just had 100 baby seahorses that are all tiny and will probably all get eaten and die? Oh my goodness. Our oldest follows or watches YouTube from, what's her name? Taylor
Nicole Dean, I believe.
She has tons of animals, and she had seahorses, and she realized very quickly that she shouldn't have, because they require a lot of care. Anyways, so back to doulas. Doulas and seahorses. You just had no idea what you were getting yourselves into listening to this today, did you guys? So that was our first experience with a doula. And
actually, you know what? We had a doula we hired for our first one, for the teenager.
No, we didn't.
Briefly, in Tucson. We hired her briefly before we moved back up to Phoenix.
We had to move and get a different care provider?
Yeah.
We did?
Yeah, she came. I remember her sitting on our couch.
I don't remember her.
Yeah.
She didn't end up holding space for me, so I don't know who you're talking about. But
like I said, it was very briefly.
Yeah. Wasn't meant to be.
It was kind of like an introduction to doulas.
Our first birth experience went pretty smooth, so there was, not that I wouldn't have loved having a doula, but we didn't end up needing.
Yeah, we didn't need.
And that's cool too. So our next experience with the doula was with our third. Again, you can listen to her birth story on the Birth Hour podcast, but it was actually the student midwife of the midwife who dropped me from her care, or us from her care, at 42 weeks. And so the student midwife I don't think she agreed with the decision, and she stayed on as my doula so that I didn't feel completely abandoned. And she was with us for most of how long did we labor at home? So this was a VBAC after 2 cesareans, and I held that baby until 43 and a half weeks.
Yeah.
And finally my body and baby were like, hello,
Enough is
knock,
enough.
knock, gotta come out. It was really hard for me to let go and birth her because I didn't feel that I had the right care provider support, because I didn't, actually.
Right.
So we were in labor for a few days.
Mm-hmm.
And I kept getting to a transition and then literally shutting down. So she stayed with us through all that. And gosh, I still remember the encouraging words she gave me through that labor. You know, so many encouraging words and wisdom and support and love. And then when I made the decision with you and her to transfer to the hospital, she supported that, and she went with us and she stayed with me. And when I had the epidural, we all napped. We all napped, and she was there through the whole thing. You know, her support through all of the changes and the long labor and the birth that was a little dramatic, she didn't waver. Her support never wavered. To this day, we still keep in touch. You know, it's 10 years later, and I have so much love and so much respect for her because of how she held space for me in a very difficult situation. You know, she never made it about her. She just was there for me as a birthing woman that was put into situations that really weren't fair. There was no option, support, and respect is what happened. Mm-hmm. And so she continued to try to give those to me and to us when it wasn't being given anywhere else. And then, she ended up being our birth doula, and she was amazing and wonderful, and she's the only birth doula we've ever had, and it's just the situation, how it unfolded, and I'm very, very grateful for her. And
it was very subtle suggestions that she would make, and like, have you thought about this, or what about this? Like, oh yeah, let's try that. And
I was laboring in the sanitized, cleaned out hot tub that was warm that we made. We set it all up for this specifically in the backyard, this hot tub. And gosh, I was having such a hard time with these contractions because the baby was facing my left leg, and they were very painful contractions because the baby was trying to turn when they would happen, and I was just getting in the way, I think. But I was trying to relax in the water, and she said, January, if you need to pee, it's okay. It's your own pee. It's sterile. You'll be fine. And that has always stuck with me 10 years later. I just loved it because the things we get caught up and worry about, you know, just relax, let go, pee. You know, I remember she said, you don't want your bladder to get too full. It's going to cause more pain and more problems, and just let it out. I couldn't pee and I couldn't let it out. I wish I could, but I'll never forget that, you know?
Yeah.
But she did everything from, support for my back labor. I had back labor with that one. A lot of counter pressure.
Yeah.
So, she brought over her rice socks. She helped me change positions. I mean, this woman physically, emotionally, and mentally held space for a 43 and a half week long labor VBAC mom. That is just amazing.
Yeah.
She had such faith in me. And I had a hard time finding people who had faith in my ability to birth this baby.
It was really just me and her.
It was me, you, and her.
Yeah, and you, yeah.
The end. That was our circle of trust. It was the three of us, right?
That was
it.
That was it.
So I'm really grateful that we had her in that experience. All right, so that was our only experience with a birth doula, and it was amazing and wonderful. And the things that you'd be looking for in a birth doula, or I would be looking for, is someone who did believe in my ability to birth the way I wanted to, who wouldn't bring their own fears or trauma into my birth experience, who would help me make up plans and alternative plans, who would hold space for me when those plans change. Anything else?
Sounds pretty good.
Pretty good beginning.
Yeah.
And interview them, and don't be afraid to change doulas at any point in your pregnancy, just like care providers. Right?
Absolutely.
They're there for you to be someone that you trust in your birth team, your birth circle.
They work for you.
Yes, but they do. but I also want to say the key is to work together. So our third and final personal experience with doulas was after our 6th baby, right?
That is correct.
Because with number 4, that was our healing unassisted birth, and we just hunkered down as a family, and it was the best postpartum we've ever had.
Yeah, it was amazing. It was a great experience.
That was an incredible experience all around. And then with our 5th, we needed the support and we didn't get it. And we definitely couldn't afford it. We just got done being homeless and we were beyond broke. And
I just opened up my first office earlier in the week when we had the bull. And so, the funds were not there.
That was so wild. If you haven't yet, you can listen to the Homeless and Pregnant podcast episode that we go into detail on all that. So with our 6th, I had prepared for postpartum. It was my 6th. So I knew that I wanted to prepare for postpartum as much as I did for birth. And that's when I realized that we aren't doing that. We're writing birth plans now. We're demanding change and options and support and respect with birth, and then we're barely even thinking about or making space for or planning for whatever our postpartum experience ends up being, because there's just as many variations of normal in postpartum as there are in birth, right?
Absolutely.
So I prepared for postpartum the best I could. We had a 2-story house. There's a little mini fridge upstairs in our room, which ended up being amazing because I had an unexpected cesarean birth. I mean, it was my choice and it was supported and it was wonderful, but it's not what I had been planning for or technically wanting.
No.
So that ended up being wonderful, and I cleared my schedule and just made space to heal and bond and breastfeed and whatnot. But what we didn't expect was we got the flu the week we had Beer Baby. We got the flu.
It was bad.
I was actually laying on the OR table and my OB was asking me to try not to cough. So I'm trying. So we were not feeling well. And then there was back and forth from the hospital with you, and I had just had the baby. And so we hadn't slept at all that week between the flu and having a baby and 5 other children. By the time I got home, we were both pretty much hallucinating.
Oh, yeah.
That evening, the first evening, because I came home a little early from the hospital, so you didn't have to keep going back and forth, because we don't live by family, so we just didn't have a lot of help. We had a little bit, but not a lot. And you told me I needed to rest, of course. I needed to sleep, and I just said, no, I can't, because I have to watch her breathe. She could stop breathing. She's a brand new baby. And you said, I will sit up and watch her breathe so that you can sleep. And you did.
I did. Right? I actually was sitting in our front room holding her, watching Ric Flair videos on YouTube. Old wrestling videos. And then when I was just too tired and could take it, took her upstairs, put her in the bassinet, and fell asleep on the floor with my hand resting over the edge of the bassinet on her chest to make sure I could feel her breathe.
And that's what I woke up to, was her in the rock and play, asleep, and you on the floor with your hand on her asleep. And I took a minute to imprint that image on my mind, because there's so much that happens through birth and postpartum and life, but especially postpartum when you're sleep deprived, that you don't remember. And I wanted to imprint that moment because I remember thinking that I had fallen in love with you that much more, seeing that. It was just so sweet.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was cool. We were so exhausted at this point, and we just knew that we needed to get some sleep. And there was no way that you could be of much more help to me, or, with the baby, or with the other 5 children, because you were still trying to heal from the flu. And
it was so bad.
We were sleep deprived. So we hired a postpartum doula for 3 nights, and it changed everything, because she could come over, and I had a couch. We had a very large Texas-sized master bedroom at this point. I miss that house so much. And she would sit on the couch, because that's the thing, leaving the room with the baby is not help to a very sleep-deprived, probably rightfully so, paranoid mother. So sitting right there in the room is what is needed. I need to know my baby is right there, because when you're sleep-deprived, when you're postpartum, you have a new baby, no, you can't take out of my room. What if while I'm sleeping, you try to breastfeed my baby, like that crazy lady in that movie I saw one time, or you try to kidnap my baby, or, all of these thoughts that are scary, and they feel very real, and they're valid. So I needed her in the room. And so she would sit on the couch, hold the baby, read whatever she was reading on her iPad, and I would sleep. And then when the baby needed to nurse, she'd come over and gently wake me up, helped me sit up because I just had a cesarean, latch baby on, nurse, and then take the baby, change, burp, whatever. The best thing about it was that you were able to leave the room and go sleep.
Yep.
Because you knew I was taken care of, you knew baby was taken care of, and you could sleep and heal from the flu. But even without the flu being a factor, just catch up on some very much needed sleep so that you could then be there for me and the kids. And so we did that for a few nights, and that was a game changer. Got some rest. Amazing. We healed, our bodies healed, and then we were able to start trying to find a new ebb and flow as a family of 8. I don't know, it's 3 years later. I'm not sure we have yet.
No, it's...
I don't know if we ever will.
Having 6 is pretty nuts.
Yeah, I think we finally gave up on the expectation of finding a new normal. Just is what it is.
Yeah, it's just...
It is what it is. It's going to be what it's going to be. What's going to happen is going to happen.
Yep.
There you go.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. I remember, though, after her last night coming over, I thought, man, I could get used to this. But then at the same time, I needed to let that go because you have to find your own way at some point postpartum with your baby, you know?
Yep, you do.
So we did. We found our own way. Rock and play was a big savior for me. Yeah, so that's our 3 experiences with doulas personally. And they've all been incredibly positive and supportive and needed and wonderful and game changers and worth it. Worth it. Completely worth it. You know, worth it financially, worth it for mental health and physical health. If financially it's a hardship, look in your area for doulas that will work on a sliding scale, or a doulas in training, or things like that. Just reach out in your community to different doulas or doula groups. You know, ask your midwife, ask in your local, any kind of groups that you have where you are. And doulas become doulas because they want to support women and their families. Like, that's what they're doing it for. If doulas were doing what they do to be rich, there would be no doulas.
There would be no doulas.
Right.
Yep.
So they are there because they want to support you. So let them, if that is something that you want in your birth space, in your postpartum space, let them support you and love you.
Absolutely.
All right. So anything else to add, or is that good? Our three experiences with doulas.
Yeah, they were.
I want to hire a life doula.
Yeah.
That's my new thing. I'm done having children, but I want a life doula. It'd be like having an assistant that also holds space for you to feel how you're feeling with your work. Wouldn't that be amazing?
You're kind of like a life doula.
Yeah. I don't want to be one. I want one.
You should train other people to be life doulas. And then you hire them to be your life doula.
I really should start something, right? Like life doulas.
January Hershey, life doula.
Right after I start the nut juice diet fad. Be like, who's this January Hershey chick? She's got the nut juice diet and life doula program. What is going on? Oh man, I'll be like, oh, I'm just a unicorn. That's how we roll. All right, love you guys.
Adios.